The Northwest Cavalryman Show, the podcast where your host, Rick Skolrud, discusses politics and news from Canada, the United States, and around the world from a conservative perspective. Warning: professionally offended people and liberal crybabies may be triggered. Viewer discretion is advised. While we put the finishing touches on this podcast, you are invited to visit the show notes. There are links to all of Rick's social media, including his website where you can sign up to take the Canadian Firearms Safety Course, which is a prerequisite for obtaining your Canadian Firearms License, also known as a PAL. Rick teaches these courses in Maple Bay, just east of Duncan on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Now here's your host, Rick Skolrud.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? I had to add that AI intro because there's so many people. Well, I don't know if there's all that many people, but there's a few people who I don't know if they're truly, trolls or what. But they keep on saying that they think I'm AI. I don't know. I'm trying to get better at this, and I'm trying to, I hope I matched up I synced the audio a little bit better with my lips. I'm not really sure if I have or not. I can't say for sure because it's kind of a little difficult to get that happening. Let me know if everything is coming through okay, though, if my lips are synced up with the audio a little bit better. I think I did that. Also, professionally triggered. Yeah, I like that. The professionally offended, officially triggered, and what else? Oh, liberal crybabies. I couldn't help myself. I had to say that. Actually, I use that line quite often with my students when I teach courses. You never know. Maybe I'll be able to teach some of you if you guys are on the island and want to take a course from me. Be glad to be glad to have you over and teach you some for a weekend. So, anyways, I'm not AI. Don't know why I have to say that again and again and again, but there you go. So there's a whole bunch of people. Hi from Montreal, that's great. And from northeastern Ontario, that's great too. Lynn and Mother, I'm not going to say that because I'll probably mess up and say something really bad. Hello, Tracy and Brad and Harley, DJ. Yes. And Neil. So, so basically, why tonight, not tomorrow night? Well, because tomorrow night is Halloween. Not that that's a really huge deal. However, I don't want to miss the trick-or-treaters. If they come to the door, I want to be able to run up. And because it's already dark now, I would imagine that they'll be coming by tomorrow at around this time, providing it's not like heavy rain or anything, but you never know. We have been having a few of those atmospheric rivers, if that is really a thing. So that's why it's tonight, not tomorrow night. Also, I do want to ask that if anybody has any suggestions of content, because it's just me. I can't catch everything. So if you catch anything that current that's going on, let me know in the comments below. What if there's something that you think we should talk about on a subsequent live stream. Anything that you want to talk about tonight, let me know in the chat. Hello, Nicole and Jennifer. Yeah, it used to be called the Pineapple Express. That's true. And hello, Neil from St. Sophie. I'm not sure where that is. I'm assuming it's in Quebec, but yes. So, Yeah, so I'm going to suggest some content. So the first thing I figured I'd bring up today is the Bloc. And the Bloc is, of course, they're trashing all over Trudeau. Why not? Everybody trashes Trudeau, and he deserves it. Matter of fact, I'm going to play a few clips from somebody who is finally speaking out against Trudeau. And you may have seen this or may not have. It was Celine... probably going to get her name wrong, but Celine Cesar Chavanis. I'm just not sure about the last part of her name there. However, she was a cabinet minister under Trudeau during the time that Jody Wilson-Raybould was there. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. First, I wanted, though, to talk about how the Bloc is trashing Trudeau and whether or not they're going to actually be able to call a non-confidence vote, because they have suggested that they will. Now, some people have suggested that they can't because the government is shut down. It is my understanding, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's only government business. So opposition motions and opposition days still apply. So when there's an opposition day, they can still enter a motion. So if, for example, the Conservatives have an opposition day, they can enter a motion, and I believe they can even offer up a portion of that day for the Bloc. I could be wrong. And of course, if the Bloc has an opposition day, they can still enter a motion. The question is will the NDP support them? So I figured I would play this. This is from Question Period today, and part of it I found quite funny. So let's just play that. And yes, here it goes.
For La Prairie. How to lose at Politics 101. 80% of voters are asking the Prime Minister to increase old age security for seniors aged 65 to 74. Every party here voted in favor of it, even his. Thanks to the Bloc Québécois, the Prime Minister had a unique opportunity to be fair to seniors, please 80% of people, and stay in power. He could have scored a triple, Mr. Speaker. Instead, he chose to abandon seniors, to say no to 80% of voters, and to buy himself an election. 0 for 3, Mr. Speaker. Does he understand now why nobody wants him around anymore? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Our government is investing in seniors. We increased the guaranteed income supplement by 10%. We are helping older seniors, those aged 75 and up, with an increase in old age security. And we delivered dental care. Over 1 million seniors across the country have seen a major difference thanks to that program. Dental care, by the way, that the Bloc decided to vote against. I would suggest that if they're taking suggestions on how to be popular in politics, that they deliver dental care services to seniors who need it. Maybe that would be a good thing that they could do instead of being like the Conservatives and voting against it. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Prime Minister could have helped 1 million Quebec seniors with the help of the Bloc. Instead, he abandoned them to go back to his ex who kicked him out, the NDP. You know, he went back, his tail between his legs, to a party that's so disconnected from Quebec that its only Quebec MP is desperately looking for a way out and into the administration of the city of Montreal. I feel sorry for Montreal. The Prime Minister could have chosen 1 million Quebecers. Instead, he chose 25 MPs, 96% of whom are from outside of Quebec. Does he understand that we don't need a secret ballot to know that nobody in Quebec trusts him anymore?
Yeah, so Justin and Jag sitting in a tree. Anyway, not going to go any further with that one. But yeah, they're back together. Were they ever broken up? I don't know. When he first said that, I actually thought that he was talking about Justin getting back together with his wife until he continued on. But that was pretty funny. So the Conservatives can enter 2 or 3 non-confidence motions. The Bloc have 1 and the NDP have 1. Okay, so thanks, Brad, for that. Nicole asked, do you think the elections in the U.S. will change the future of the Liberals? I certainly hope so. I think the best option for Canada may be Trump getting in, because if Trump gets in, then the U.S. does a lot better economically, and so does Canada. So that is something that I'm hoping for. Never did like Trump's personality, although I'm warming up to it a little bit. But I do believe he was a good president, and I think he'll be a good president again. Let's hope so. Anyway, he wasn't necessarily the greatest for Canada in his first term, other than the fact that when the U.S. does well, Canada does well. One of the things that's coming up with Trump that I think is very interesting is he's talking about eliminating federal income tax, which, if he does, that would be another really good reason for Canada to join the U.S., as in, like, merge. But I know that that's not popular, and a lot of people are going to hate me for that. But financially, economically, you know what? Keep it in the back of your mind. Think about it. Mull it over. Let me know what you think about that. Maybe next week we can talk about that a little bit more. And you know what? I could be completely out to lunch here about whether or not that would be a good idea. But, as long as you're not abusive, let me know. A North American Union, I think, would actually, economically, it would be great. Now, I'm not a fan of a centralized, really huge centralized government. So you might say, well, why would that be then that you kind of support this? And that's because states have a lot of independence, and power is more decentralized. But we can get into that at a later time. That wasn't one of my planned topics, unless you guys want to talk about that, and we can talk about that later. I just think that if Trump wins, then we will reap a lot of benefits from him winning. That is my opinion, and I could be wrong, but definitely he can't do worse than Biden, definitely not worse than Kamala, and definitely not worse than Trudeau. Sorry. So will they be able to call an election? I don't know. The Bloc call an election? I don't know. I hope they can. Honestly, I don't think the NDP, though, is going to support it. I truly believe that Jag is he's going to go with his buddy Trudeau. He's going to vote. He's all he's all wind. He's all hot air. I don't think he's willing to throw Trudeau under the bus just yet. So I'm thinking that we will be stuck with Trudeau until October and of next year. And I think one of the reasons why he's not going to call an election unless he's forced to is this really lame excuse that he wants his son to be able to vote for him. Like, that is the stupidest excuse. And it's narcissism, like narcissism to the highest level. And which is something that Jordan Peterson likes to say. And this is that leads us into my next segment. And it seemed to be rolling along pretty fast here, so hopefully I've got enough content. But our next segment, or my next segment, is the fake feminist Justin Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of women's rights, just yesterday, his former parliamentary secretary came out publicly, Selina Cesar Chavan, and said that she was abused intimidated, and mistreated by this Prime Minister, that he used her for his fake feminist agenda, and that he treated her like garbage, Mr. Speaker. It is terrible the way he exercises hypocrisy.
So, just reading some of the comments here as we're going through that. Yes, I think that some of the disaffected MPs would either abstain or vote against Trudeau, but Doug, but I don't think that they will unless they cross the floor. And we talked about this last week. They might abstain though, but will they have enough? I'm not really sure. It's questionable. But so getting back to the fake feminist, what I wanted to play now are a couple of portions from the Jordan Peterson interview of Celine, and I found this very interesting. I'm going to go, I just watched the 17-minute version, so kind of the teaser. He's got, I think, a 2 or 3 hour interview of her, and I plan on going through that probably on the weekend, unless maybe I have time on Friday to go through it. But I just wanted to play a couple of things from that now.
Yeah. What happened after I made that recognition was I did things completely differently. And I still kept getting into a lot of trouble for things, but at this point, I was doing it for the right reasons. I was getting in good trouble. And oftentimes you'd be given a speech and said, here, read the speech, say what's on the speech, and don't deviate. And I'd say, forget it. I'm not saying what's on this speech. This speech has nothing to do with the people of Whitby. It has nothing to do with the people that I serve. Tell me the 3 things that you want me to say that are really important. I'll say those, but I need to make sure that I'm representing Whitby. So I'd write my own speeches. I'd make sure I'd say them in French and English because I didn't want anybody to knock me for it. And I really made sure that I wasn't doing the cookie cutter politician move where you see one person sends out a tweet and everybody's tweet looks exactly the same. That wasn't me. I was very clear to make sure that the people of Whitby knew that I was serving them. And if I couldn't tweak the messaging, I posted nothing. And then I think towards the end, towards especially March of 2019, I just decided that I was not going to let the actions of one person dictate how I left government. And I was not going to let Justin Trudeau continue to be presenting himself as this sunny ways, great politician when I knew that he was the emperor with no clothes on.
So a very, very strong woman. What Trudeau did to her, I think, was completely despicable. But she goes on in some of the other clips that I'm not going to play because it's too long, and if I played too much of it, I would get a copyright strike, even though it is covered by fair use. However, it just shows how narcissistic he really is. And there's another clip about that later. But there's one thing I wanted to go over, something that she said later in the interview, and that was how Trudeau reacted to her saying that she wasn't going to run again.
One thing to say, you did some missteps, but I felt duped by a party that I really thought understood what it meant to be center, understood what it meant to have equity and justice, what it meant to have those things, and to be disenfranchised by them because I wanted more for the people that I serve was was
Betrayal.
disenfranchising for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, well, definitely.
That is the word. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
that is actually the word. Betrayal. And so I called the prime minister and I said, look, I'm not running again. I didn't even have to give him a reason. I said, I'm not running again. It's 4 years. I'm not getting a pension. I'm not getting anything. I just don't want to do this. He said, well, that was the same day that Jody Wilson-Raybould had stepped down. He couldn't have 2 women of color leave at the same day.
So, as you can see, is the audio on those coming through very well? I think they're a little bit. I think they're a little bit quiet, but I'm not really sure. I can't listen to them, or else you'll get feedback. So I can't listen to them while I'm playing them here. I just wanted to comment before we went on a few of the things in the chat here. Glenn from the Maritimes asked, do you think the Maritimes, or that the Maritimes will go blue, all blue with a little orange? Let's hope so. Although, for whatever reason, New Brunswick voted Liberal in the last provincial election. Now, I guess provincial elections, federal elections, of course, they are different. They have different mandates, but the Conservatives have been in there for a little while, so that could have been the reason why people get tired after a while of having the same people in government. Hello, Suzanne, and didn't catch where you're from. Maybe you did a little later. Hodaka. Yes, Trudeau has a major God complex. I would agree with that. He's so full of himself. Hello, Glenn from rural Prince George. Been up there a few times. I do, I've been there a few times, although usually in the winter time. And, so I haven't had a chance to experience Prince George in the summer. Mo got in Saskatchewan, so that was good. So what do you think of what she had to say there? I thought that finally people are starting to speak up. I haven't read Jody Wilson-Raybould's book. I've been meaning to get a copy. I think actually I might see if my dad can send me his copy, because I'm pretty sure he's already read it. But I do want to. I'll probably just buy a copy. If anybody has read that book, let me know. Is it a good book? Is it something that you would recommend? That would be very, very good to know. Although I do believe I'm going to get it. Part of our history, and probably says a lot about what Trudeau is all about. Okay, so let's go on to let's talk about the traitors and that press conference from a few days ago. I did do a video on this, but that was pretty wild. How did Sam know about those traitors? How did he find out? That's a big question for me. I don't know where he got that information. Clearly, it's not a leak, or at least I hope for his sake it's not a leak, because whoever leaked that could be in quite a bit of trouble. But we do deserve to know. He did clearly have a recorded conversation that he played, and that was very telling, especially who was in the room there. Not only 2 senators, which senators, I'm not sure how much information do they really have access to. and how much influence do they have? I don't know, but it's disturbing that they have been infiltrated, and how long have they even been there? I know that the one Liberal senator was only appointed by Justin Trudeau, so there's that. The obviously Mary Ng is a huge issue. Now, she's been on a lot of trips with Trudeau, very, very close to him, followed him to Ottawa after being elected, in Toronto. And that is very telling. She's got all these connections, and, again, this is not proof. This is, investigative reporting. But, how she can still be in cabinet, let alone, caucus is one thing, but cabinet, that's a whole other thing. She's privy to some pretty sensitive stuff, and he's allowing her to be in cabinet. That is crazy. That is just insane. But I think that he is, my personal opinion is Trudeau is the biggest threat to Canada of anybody, regardless. And I think that, anybody else in there also threats to Canada, but I believe Trudeau is the biggest threat. And I think that he is probably giving information freely away to our adversaries. I think he's even done that publicly. He doesn't care. Anything he says is, because of his position, he's covered by parliamentary privilege, by privilege of his office. He can get away with all that crap, but he shouldn't. I do believe that he is he's the biggest threat to Canada we've had since his father was in power. And that's saying something, because his father was a member of the party that became the NDP. And they were kind of known as, at that time, as Canada's third, or was it? Yeah, I think it's Canada's third communist party, because we actually have 4 communist parties, believe it or not, in Canada. We're such a, I can't even believe it, how left-wing we are. And that's another reason why maybe a merger with a country that actually has solid rights would be, a benefit. If you weren't here, I was kind of talking about possibly merging with the United States if they take off their income tax. That would be so great. You could be able to keep a lot more of your money. But anyways, again, not going to get into that. So Cuba keeps on being brought up. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this, but I don't know how many of y'all were around when Justin's dad was coming into power. Most of us had the impression that he wasn't exactly manly. Man, I'm not going to go into any further detail than that, but we all suspected that his marriage to Margaret was a political business deal. So if people are suggesting that possibly there is some other parentage there from his children, it is possible. That is very, very possible. Whether or not it is what people, the connections that people have made, I don't know. But I'm just saying that was a business deal. So it's not like there was any true feelings there. So these potential traitors, what I found really quite disturbing was well, it's not really more disturbing than Mary. I think Mary Ng was the most disturbing, but the second most disturbing in my mind of the four that were named by Sam there was Ding, and I'm probably going to pronounce his last name wrong, so I'm just not going to bother. Ding, who is the advisor to David Eby. And we find this out a week and a half after the election. We find this out the day that the lieutenant governor asks David Eby to form the new provincial government. Isn't that convenient? Now, I'm sure it wasn't planned by, Kevin Vaughn, or however you pronounce his name. I'm sure that wasn't planned. However, let's think about this for a second. If we had known, if even the dyed-in-the-wool NDPers people who vote NDP in BC had known that a week and a half earlier, would that have changed the outcome of the election? I think it probably would have. Because it was so close, it wouldn't have taken much. And then there's all these questions about that election that are coming out by the day. I think the most damning part of it is the continuity of the ballots. Taking them home. That, in my mind, that should invalidate the election. That should completely invalidate the election. You can't have ballots taken home by election workers. How can anybody think that that is acceptable? They paid millions of dollars for these tabulation machines that they didn't need, that didn't work. It didn't give us the results on the night, and they couldn't afford to rent safes that they could lock these ballots up. They couldn't afford to hire security and have volunteers from each party stand by as well to play security guard overnight to make sure that these ballots are kept safe. They instead have to send them home with, election BC workers. That's insane. That those ballots, you cannot trust them. And now you can't trust any of the results because who knows what those ballots actually said? Who knows how many ballots there were? Even if no shenanigans happened there, the appearance of shenanigans, guess what? That, in my mind, that invalidates everything. So, I don't know. Can we? It's insane. This reminds me of when I was a kid. I became kind of politically aware when I was, even before I was a teenager. But when I was a teenager, in the 70s, I became aware politically of what was going on. And even back at that time, I could see the corruption that a lot of people were denying in Canada. And a lot of it is institutionalized corruption. And it's just gotten worse. I think we're more aware of it now for sure because of the internet. And that's one of the really good things about the internet is we're more aware of it. But, and maybe in the future, because of our awareness, we can stop some of it. But when we, allowing this to go on is insane, and allowing the this election to hold after, these election officials, not even officials, these election workers are taking ballots home. We don't know how they were being kept. The continuity of them is. If I was still in the RCMP and I took exhibits home, I would be fired, and I would be investigated, and I'd probably be charged. You just can't do it. And what is more important to our democracy than safeguarding our elections? Nothing. So personally, I think that should be call for a redo. There's nothing in our I don't think there's anything in our Constitution that allows for a redo, but I think that we should have a redo because of that, because we can't trust. I don't trust the results of that election. And up until that point, I wasn't. I was skeptical of the machines. I wasn't going to say that, come right out and say that there was fraud. But now that I hear that the ballots went home overnight, I can't. There's absolutely no way that I trust the results of this election because of that. Not necessarily the machines. Although I don't trust the machines, I don't think we needed them. I think it's a waste of money. But the continuity of those ballots, that is a huge concern. A huge concern. So, yeah, I don't trust it. What do you think? Am I out to lunch here? I mean, do you trust? Does anybody out there trust the election results now that we know people were taking ballots off-site, and there was no security? That, to me, that's just insane. So, and now that we know that David Eby was in cahoots with the Chinese, I don't know, the shenanigans that are going on. I've lost full faith. I've lost all faith in our government. Provincially, I should pay more attention on this channel to provincial politics, although it's almost a full-time job between renovating the house, keeping up with federal politics. But I tell you what, it's just crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much what I had to talk about today. But I'm just I don't know, like with all of this connection to China and all of our left-leaning politicians, and with these new connections being found almost daily, I'm just totally surprised that the left is still getting people voted in. I realize that a lot of people are, quite a bit far to the left in BC. I don't understand it. I honestly don't understand it. It's like people want to give up their freedom. Other than family, what else is there? There's family and there's freedom. There's connections you make, personal connections you make, and there's freedom. Government is like down, the list from there. As long as government doesn't infringe upon your freedoms, they provide you the services you need, they protect your rights. That's what they're there for. But over the centuries, they have grown into a monster where they're feeding themselves and we're feeding them instead of them serving us. So, there's a lifespan of governments, and it's usually about 200, 250 years, sometimes even less, sometimes less than that, sometimes 150 years, where governments kind of implode because they just get too big. Are we there? I guess is the question. Will we implode, and how can we save our country? Or, even is it worth saving at this point? I don't know. But definitely, I don't know, like, it almost seems like if you're a conservative, you're kind of on this island surrounded by a bunch of low information sharks in the ocean who are just voting contrary to their true interests. Because, you know, if you vote for big government, if you want big government, if you want to give your money away, you know, to me, that's against your interests, your own interests. You should be concerned with yourself, your family, your friends, neighbors, your community. And when you are concerned with those things, big government is not your friend. You know, if you can keep your money and look after yourself, that is your best option, in my opinion. You know, so, you know, government, it's almost like people are refusing to grow up. They want government. They want to be taken care of. And that's why they vote left wing. It's just insane to me. But I don't know. That's kind of my opinion. And, you know, let's, I'm going to go and I'm going to scroll up and look at some of the comments that or the chat that I've probably missed. And then, probably call it a bit of an early night, because those are the things I had to talk about. So Doug is from Lundbrook, Alberta. Where exactly is Lundbrook? Lundbrook. I've probably been through there. I was posted in Alberta for 15 years, and also lived there for 4 years when I was a kid, or 4 or 6 years, I don't know. Lived in Edmonton. So let's go. Breton Island, Cape Breton Island. So you're from Cape Breton. That's great. I know. That's one part of the Maritimes, or there's two parts of the Maritimes I've not been. I've not been to Cape Breton, although I was born in New Brunswick, and I've not been to Newfoundland. I'd like to go to both places, but I've not been there. Again, we talked about the U.S. elections. Yeah, it will have an effect. I don't know how good it will be for us or not, but I hope it will be. His lips are moving. Trudeau's lips are moving, so he's definitely lying. Yes, I do agree. So Lynn O'Farrell is saying that because of Trudeau, a lot of seniors are having to go back to work. That is of course the case. Actually, I talked about this on one of my earlier broadcasts or podcasts, is that we need to be able to have more control over our own money. For one reason is our population decline, or our I guess it's the fertility rate. How many people are being born per per capita, and how we're not at replacement rates, but we used to be. And what happened, I believe, a couple of things happened, but primarily is life got too expensive. So people are putting off having children and not having children altogether because they can't afford it. So, I mean, that is, so then we import all these other people, and we don't have and because of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, we've given up our own culture. So guess what? We're losing our country as a result. I hope that Trump wins, but they are already the lamestream media. I like the way you say that, the lamestream media here in Canada will conflate PP with Trump. Yes, they do. Really, I get it why people don't like the way Trump presents himself, but his policies are actually sound, and he was a good president. I hope he will be again. Pierre will be better than Trump, I do believe. But you can see how the lamestream media treats Pierre and how our politicians are just taking a book out of the Democrats' playbook. I mean, a page out of the Democrats' playbook. And they're making Pierre out to be some far-right extremist, which he's not. So I really think that, the politicians and the lamestream media really, need a reality check. And when Pierre gets elected, I'm hoping that will come. There's a lot of people out there who are believing what they're being fed about Pierre too, and that's why he's only at 43% popularity instead of 83%, in my opinion. So Glenn asks makes the point that 400 U.S. bureaucrats have Israeli U.S. dual citizens. So there was a time that if you were Jewish, you could get Israeli citizenship if you did time in the IDF. I don't know if that's still the case, but there are a lot of people who've done that. So Jagmeat or Jugmeat, however you pronounce it, is a rooster in a pig pen. Jennifer says, dictator, he knows he is above the law and isn't going anywhere. That's true. Like, he shows, and I think that the clips I showed today, and I only showed a few, really demonstrate his mindset. What he did to Celine, and what he did to Jody Wilson-Raybould, that was so disturbing at the time. It was just amazing that he was able to get elected twice more. But he lost both of the popular votes during each of those subsequent elections. So a lot of people were aware of it. It's just how the seats are allocated and how many seats are in different areas is really why he got elected. And also our system is such that you can win without 50% of the vote. You can get a majority. Let's see. So RC, excuse me, says the Canadian government is a uniparty, although the uniparty is coming apart because they no longer on how to dismantle the wealth of Canadian citizens, from the middle class to the industrialites. So I don't know if they're really uniparty or not. I've always been conservative, not one of these newcomers who voted Liberal at one time and then became conservative. Always been conservative. I do believe, though, that our Conservative Party can be a little bit more conservative and still be centralist, because big government is just bad for everybody. Let's see here. You find the need for mods. I'm willing to help you. I'm not sure what that means, because I probably mentioned something and then forgot. But that's just the way I am. Alberta and Saskatchewan are blue, thank God. Suzanne, the internet grandma, is from Saskatchewan. Great. Good to hear. My dad's from Saskatchewan, so hopefully he'll be around for a while yet. However, he is battling some health issues. But originally from Saskatchewan, lives in Ladner now, where I grew up, which is in British Columbia. Was Eby elected? Yes, sort of. He was sort of elected, or at least officially he has been declared the winner and asked to form the government by the lieutenant governor. But was he really? I guess that's the question. Hello, James. So Nicole says, yes, Eby got elected, but it will be a tough go for him, or at least so Lynn said. I don't know if it would be a tough go for him or not. He now has a majority, but he's trying to keep his majority votes by trying to get one of the Conservatives to be the Speaker. But I don't think that's going to be offered up. Maybe he'll get one of the Greens to be the Speaker. I don't know. Because if you're the Speaker, you lose a vote. Or if the Speaker's from your party loses that vote. The Speaker can't vote on anything. So that's the case. So Glenn, I want to ask you, you mentioned that you just ordered the book. I'm assuming you're talking about the Jody Wilson-Raybould book. And I believe she did an interview with Jordan Peterson. Is that correct? Because I didn't see that interview as well. I'm going to go through his YouTube and see if I can bring that up, because I'd like to go through that. I seem to have a vague memory of catching a preview of that, but I didn't actually see the interview, which I think that would be a really good interview to see. So if you've seen it, let me know. Was it a good interview? Was there anything that we don't already know? And again, I'm going to order the book. Why has the clip of the lady Trudeau pushed and manhandled on the floor of the House of Commons not being showed everywhere at this time? It has been forgotten. I actually showed it. So this is from Michael LeBlanc. I showed it on a previous video that I did. And I guess she was from the NDP, but it resurfaces every now and again. Just it should be kept in the forefront, because it shows how much of a phony he is. He's a complete phony. He doesn't. Everything he says he stands for, he doesn't. He's just in it for the power. So that's my opinion. Ing has to go. I agree, Norm. She has to go. Eby's advisor is the person that I was talking about before. Ding something or other. Let's see. CCP stooge. There's so many of those. And what came about in, it was the person who spoke after Sam, who was saying that we have a disproportionate amount of Chinese diplomats in Canada for our population. We have more Chinese diplomats than even the UK has, and the UK has twice our population, or they used to have twice our population. So that says a lot. We're an easy target. And I mentioned that in one of my videos as well. We are definitely an easy target. Mother was talking about, when I'm talking about his father, am I talking about Pierre or Fidel? Kind of both, but yeah. Pierre cycled around with a German helmet. Yes, he did. Actually, it was after World War II. So Pierre Elliott Trudeau, I do have a picture of that somewhere. Maybe I'll try to find it and put it up. But Pierre Elliott Trudeau was, not only was he in one of our communist parties, not the Communist Party, but one of our communist parties in the late 50s, but in the early 50s, he was filmed in Montreal on a motorcycle wearing a German helmet. Yeah, so there is still photographs of him. He was a playboy. I don't know. He was something. He probably hopes that people think he was a playboy. And he probably did play around a lot. But were they... Yeah. Pure Blood said it right. Play girl maybe is more accurate. But that's just an opinion. YouTube, it is an opinion. I'm not claiming it to be fact. So, okay, I didn't know that Maggie gave an interview and was answering questions about Fidel. That would be very interesting. I'm going to go Google that afterwards. Really? Penthouse put Maggie in their magazine? Not that I follow Penthouse or anything, but why would you put that? Ugh. Anyway, I've never really thought too highly of Maggie. She's always been crazy, always been out there, and yeah, whatever. The one finger James West remembers Pierre Elliott Trudeau's one finger salute to the West, which which at the time I think lost him. I don't think they got a seat west of Manitoba after that, but I could be wrong about the timing. Yeah. Phone in calling is a great idea. It makes it so much easier while I'm searching the cemetery. Telephone voting, how could that even be a thing? Telephone voting. It's bad enough that you got these mail-in votes, which I don't agree with either. How do you prove ID now? And so this is something else I got to look into. Is now Michelle Gardner had put out a video about Trudeau silently pushing this digital ID, which we've seen coming for a while, but he's really pushing it. So this is not a good thing, especially if they make it mandatory. But with Trudeau, even if he doesn't make it absolutely mandatory, it'll mean you won't be able to do stuff if you don't get it. So it's just another example of the more control government wants over your lives. I'm not a fan of that. I don't want it. So, yeah. Anyway, I think we've, Alice says, oh my God, Maggie and Penthouse, gross. That's exactly how I feel. I didn't hear that prior to just reading it. And that's just, I don't even want to think about that. Anyway, Medic Droid, I am going to actually close out this video and pour myself a whiskey as well, I think, because I am, going to have to relax and watch a football game for the rest of the night and pour myself a little bit of bourbon. So thank you guys for joining in and keeping this lively. And I will see you next week on Thursday this time. So a week and a day from now. So talk to you all later. Have a good week. Have a good Halloween. I'm not sure if I'm going to put my, I do this thing called cowboy action. I haven't done it for a little bit. I was shooting IPSC, which is the International Practical Shooting Confederation. I'm still an IPSC member, but I don't think I'm going to renew my membership because of my hands and my knee. It just can't move fast enough. But I'm probably going to still keep up cowboy action, which is a shooting competition. You have a couple of 6-shooters, a lever action rifle, and a double-barreled shotgun. Lots of fun. You dress up like a cowboy, say lots of goofy cowboy stuff. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'll dress up like a cowboy tomorrow and meet kids at the door, but probably not. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in a week and a day. And I hope everybody has a good Halloween and a good week. And with that, we will say good night.